Today, I'm going to show you how to make a very simple pasta dough recipe. It's pretty simple. The ingredients are just flour. We're using regular all-purpose flour, eggs, a little bit of olive oil, and some salt. And then the tools you're going to need, saran wrap, any cling wrap will do. Some sort of scraping tool is helpful, not necessarily required, but it's helpful. When you're kneading out the dough, there's going to be stuff that gets on the countertop. It's nice to be able to scrape it up. You can use a scraper like we have here, or spatula, anything like that. And then we also are going to be using a pasta roller. So the first decision you have to make when making the pasta recipe is how much pasta dough do you want to have? When it's just me and Laura making pasta dough, we tend to make a 2-cup batch of pasta dough. So what that means is that I'm going to use 2 cups of flour. I'm going to use 2 eggs, because you use 1 egg per every cup of flour that you use. And then what I've been told is the technical term is a glug of olive oil for every cup of flour. It's about a tablespoon each. And then a pinch per cup of flour. You want to make sure you have a nice big clear work area, a nice clean flat surface that you can knead on, because that's where you're going to be doing all your work. I also really like to do it next to the sink, because when we're done, you can just scrape it right into the sink. It makes it easy cleanup. So the first thing you want to do is get your flour out onto the counter. So, like I said before, we're using 2 cups. So measure out 2 cups. Like this. Then what you want to do is you want to form this mountain here that you have into a volcano. So the next thing you're going to do is add your other ingredients to the volcano of flour that you have. So the first thing we're going to do is eggs. Now, I like to be a little bit cleaner with my cooking and stuff. And so I'm going to crack the eggs into a bowl first. And I'm going to scramble them up in this bowl a little bit, rather than have them just be eggs with the yolks and the whites separated. It's going to make mixing it a little bit cleaner. Let's get rid of those. So we'll just kind of, you don't have to scramble them too badly, just get the yolks broken up a little bit. There we go, something like that. Just a little bit of scramble. And then you can pour that into the center of your volcano. Put that to the side. And then you're going to add 2 glugs, 2 tablespoons of this olive oil. So 1-ish, 2-ish, something like that, I don't know. And then we're going to add the salt, and it's 2 pinches of salt. So I'll just pour a little into my hand first so I don't over salt it. And then 1 pinch, 2 pinch. So now you want to start mixing your egg mixture and the flour. So sometimes it's best to use one hand to kind of guard it and keep everything together. And then just kind of start stirring in the flour closest to the egg mixture. Just kind of start incorporating it a little bit. And start slowly so you don't break through your volcano rim. But as it starts to get kind of congealed here, it'll be less important, because it's gonna start really making the dough. So. Now that we've started to sort of get a dough-like consistency here, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my dough, I'm gonna move it off to the side here, and I'm gonna feed flour into it from the original pile as needed to get the consistency I'm shooting for in the end. And as you knead it, you can actually add a little bit more flour if you have to from the sides. There's still a lot of flour left from my original starting position, and I'm gonna have to incorporate more, but I'm just getting to the point now where I can start to manipulate it, so I'll do it slowly. Through the magic of movie making, I've cleaned my hands. It's actually, at this point, a really good idea to clean your hands, because you get a better sense of how sticky the dough is and how much more flour you need to incorporate. So anyway, keep adding flour, fold it in if you want. It's a nice way to do it. Keep kneading. This is where the scraper comes in handy. Again, it's not necessary, but it does, it's helpful, right? You can get these little bits off the countertop, and then you can incorporate those into your dough. If they don't stick to it, you just pop them on top and fold them in. So we're gonna keep doing this and keep adding more flour. I can feel that it's definitely drier. It's not sticking to my hands so much, right? The flour is mostly sticking to my hands, but there are little pockets of it that are still sticky, something like this. As you knead it, you get to these wetter pockets. So let's keep adding flour. Something like that, fold it in. At this point, I've added probably most of the flour I'm gonna need. I might have to add a little bit more as I need it. But now we start the kneading section. So the dough needs to be kneaded for about 5 minutes. And from what I have experienced in the past, you just basically knead until your arms feel like you're gonna fall off, and then you're halfway done. Your dough is going to be somewhere between flat and glossy. It's kind of weird. We'll show you at the end, but it's like a silky kind of texture on the outside. It's not very sticky, and when you cut this thing in half and you're done, see inside there's these pockets, you can see air bubbles and stuff. When you're done, those will all be gone. You will have kneaded all of those out. So we're not ready yet, but we'll keep going. Look, help has arrived.
Down, roll over, bang.
Okay, so finally we are approaching the right consistency. So see, it's satiny finish, right? It's not very sticky at all. And if I cut it in half now, there should be fewer bubbles. I can't promise no bubbles. It's not that bad though. Clean up the mess very quickly. Look at that, all gone. You want to form a little ball out of it. Something like that. And then you're going to wrap this in saran wrap. Put the dough right in the center. And then just want to wrap it up nice and tight. And then you're just going to put this on the counter. Minimum of 30 minutes, but it can really be a couple hours if you wanted to. And then we're going to be ready to roll it out into pasta. So now we've let this rest for a couple hours actually. Now it's time to roll it out in the pasta maker. So open up the saran wrap, get this guy out. You do not want to put the whole thing through at one time. It'll make either really, really long noodles or it'll be very tough to get it through. So what you want to do is cut off some little sections. A ball this size, which is kind of baseball sized, I might cut into 4 pieces. 1, 2, so something like this that's more on the order of a golf ball, a little larger than a golf ball, is probably a good amount. Oh, look, cooking with a Corgi. Corgi fur, awesome. Okay, put all this stuff to the side, give yourself some space, and then you're gonna take this, and on your pasta maker, there's a wheel over here, if you've never used it before, and it goes from 0 to a number of other sizes. And when you go up to the higher numbers, it makes the gap skinnier. So you always want to start with the 0 or the biggest, whatever the biggest is on your machine. So you're just going to take the pasta dough and kind of flatten it out a little bit so that it'll get grabbed by the rollers, and then just stick it in there and give it a roll. So the best thing to do, if you're going to make noodles out of it, which is what this attachment here is for, you're going to want something that's fairly square so that your noodles are all roughly the same length. And if you roll out a ball, you end up with something that's much more oval shaped. So one way to do this is when you have your oval here, you fold it into 3 pieces. But what's kind of important is that when you fold it, you want it to be almost triangular, or so it's fat on one end and skinny on the other. Then feed it through the fat end first. So you do this. See, as I go through, the top end kind of flares out. And then when you're done, you have something that's a bit more square. So I do this a couple times to start with. Just do another one. Feed it through. All of this is done on the 0 setting. Maybe one more time. Okay, now I've got something that's going to be square. So now I can move my wheel down one more notch, so it's a notch skinnier. And then I'm going to feed the pasta through. And on all of the next levels, I feed it through once in one direction, and then I put the back end through again, and feed it through a second time. So you're going to continue this and keep going down one number at a time until you're at the right thickness, whatever suits you for whatever you're making. Typically on our machine, which has numbers that goes up through 9, we'll stop at 6 or 7. Just it's what we usually like for our pasta, but you can really do whatever you like. I've rolled this out to the number 6 on here, and you'll see it's much bigger now, and it's almost somewhat transparent. I don't know if you can see this, but you should be able to see kind of through it to my hand. That's pretty good for what we usually do. So then the next thing you might want to do is cut noodles out of it. And most pasta makers have a noodle cutting thing. It's pretty much the same as the rollers. Just move your crank over to the noodle side, and then you're just going to feed the sheet of pasta through it. And out come noodles. They might stick to each other. So what you can do is, at this point, put them onto a baking sheet and then put down some cornmeal and kind of toss them in the cornmeal and break them up a little bit, and that will keep them from sticking. And you can go straight into cooking them in water if you like. Just keep in mind that fresh pasta takes a lot less time to cook than the dried stuff, so it may take 2 or 3 minutes in water. But if you want to save these for a little bit later, you can make nests out of them. So you just kind of, once you've put your cornmeal on it, kind of make a little nest in it like this, and you can put it on the baking sheet and put it in the refrigerator. It will dry it out a bit. You can put some saran wrap over it to keep it from drying out, but you can put it in the fridge for a little while to wait for dinner if you're a little ahead of schedule. Okay, so that's it. Making pasta dough was very simple. I hope you enjoyed that demonstration. If you're cooking at home, you can feel free to try different flours. You can try semolina flour versus regular flour, or you can add different flavors. Maybe you want to add a little lemon juice or some rosemary or something to your doughs, but play around with it. But that's a basic principle of making pasta that is a fairly reliable and good recipe. So enjoy.